Good morning, Virgo. Thank you for being here. This one came in raw, no easing. Take what resonates, leave what doesn't. Subscribe if this already has you. Let's go. They tasted something once, maybe briefly, maybe in a single exchange that lasted minutes and has lasted in them for months. And now they cannot stop. That is the whole situation. Everything else, the age gap, the circumstances, the reasonable arguments against the wanting everything else, is just the silverware rattling around an empty table while the hunger sits at the center of it. Undeniable and not particularly interested in being reasonable. Here is what youth does with appetite. It doesn't negotiate. It hasn't learned to yet, hasn't accumulated enough scar tissue around the wanting to know that wanting this much is supposed to be dangerous. Hasn't been taught that certain hungers should be managed, redirected, filed under impractical, and left there. So it just wants directly, without the elaborate architecture of justification that older desire builds around itself, without checking first whether the wanting is appropriate or strategic or likely to end well. The appetite moves, and the person follows it, and that is the whole transaction, clean and uncomplicated and slightly terrifying to witness in someone who hasn't yet learned to be embarrassed by their own hunger. You are what they want, not a version of you, not a carefully considered subset of you that fits inside what they think they should want. You, entire, the full, difficult, complicated, particular fact of you, which they have not yet learned to find overwhelming because they have not yet been trained to find certain things overwhelming. Their inexperience is not a weakness here, it is the weapon. Being consumed, let's stay with that image because it is doing real work. To be eaten whole is not to be diminished. Ask the thing that gets consumed. Ask fire what it means to be fed. The fuel is not lesser for being wanted that completely. The fuel is what makes the burning possible. This person's attention is fire. Young fire which burns differently from seasoned fire. Hotter in short bursts, less controlled, more likely to jump its container and catch things that weren't supposed to catch. Less interested in the careful management of its own temperature. It burns, because burning is what it does, and what it has chosen to burn toward, with the full undiscriminating heat of someone who doesn't yet know how to burn quietly. Is you. What does it feel like on your end? Probably confusing. Probably something you haven't known quite where to put. The attention of someone younger arrives differently. It doesn't carry the weight of strategy or the texture of patience. It is immediate. It shows. It doesn't know yet how to not show. And there is something in being wanted that nakedly that produces a specific response in the person being wanted, not always comfortable, not always welcome, but impossible to be entirely indifferent to. Something that wakes up, something that has been moving through its days in the comfortable dimness of being moderately seen and suddenly finds itself in direct light. Direct light is not always flattering, but it is always revealing. And what this person's attention is revealing in you, the specific qualities it is illuminating with its unsubtle, unsophisticated, entirely sincere beam, is something worth seeing, worth knowing is visible, worth understanding is being perceived. You are being seen in the direct light. Most people don't get that. The hunger has a shape. It is not purely romantic, though. That element is there, present and undisguised. It is also the hunger of someone who has encountered, possibly for the first time in their experience, a person whose depth exceeds their current ability to measure it. They keep finding more of you. Every conversation, every exchange, every moment of proximity, they arrive expecting to have reached the bottom of the thing and discover instead another layer, another register, another room they didn't know was there. And this discovery, this perpetual not arriving at the end of you, is both maddening and addictive in the specific way that anything inexhaustible is addictive to someone who has spent their life encountering things that run out. Most things run out. You don't seem to. That is the hunger, not for what they've had, for what they haven't reached yet, the wanting that comes from depth they can feel but cannot see the bottom of. Now, the complication, because there is one, and pretending otherwise would be its own kind of dishonesty. Youth eats whole. That is the title. That is the truth. And being eaten whole is exhilarating, yes. Being wanted with that totality is rare, yes. Genuinely rare. But whole consumption is not the same as nourishment. Fire that burns hot and young burns through its fuel faster. The intensity that makes young wanting extraordinary is the same quality that makes it in certain configurations, under certain conditions, difficult to sustain at its original temperature. This is not a reason to close. It is a reason to see clearly, to receive the wanting with your eyes open, to let it be what it is, and also to let yourself be what you are, which is a person who has learned things about fire that this person hasn't learned yet. Something about burning. They are about to learn it from you. The specific thing about being wanted by someone younger, it doesn't feel like being appreciated. It feels like being discovered. There is a difference. Appreciation comes from comparison from someone who has tasted enough things to place you accurately in a hierarchy of quality. Appreciation says, I have had others, and I prefer you. Discovery says something different. Discovery says, I didn't know this existed. I didn't know a person could be like this. I didn't know this flavor was available in the world. That is what is happening in this person's experience of you. Whew, not preference among options, revelation of a category, the discovery that something they didn't have language for, some quality of being that their experience hadn't yet introduced them to, exists, has a name, has a face, has been in their proximity, and has rearranged quietly and without asking permission everything they thought they understood about what they were hungry for. March. Something about this month is making the hunger louder in them, less containable, less willing to exist quietly in the background of their days while they go through the motions of wanting other things. The season turns, and something in young bodies turns with it, some biological insistence, some heightening of appetite that winter suppressed and spring is releasing. They are not entirely in control of the wanting right now. They were managing it. March stopped the managing. So it is showing in the way they look, in the quality of their attention when you are near. in the specific energy of someone who has been holding something down and feels it with increasing urgency, with decreasing success, pushing upward against the hold. Watch for the pushing. It is not subtle. What you do with this is yours entirely. But before you decide, before you file it, categorize it, apply to it, whatever framework seems most reasonable, let yourself feel what it actually feels like to be wanted like this. Not evaluated, not appreciated, not chosen from among options, devoured with the full, uncalculating, completely undisguised hunger of someone who encountered you and lost their appetite for everything else. That is not nothing, Virgo. That is, in the strange and uncomfortable and entirely real vocabulary of being wanted. Almost everything. Let it land. All of it. Before you decide what to do with the bones,